Well, hello, everybody, and welcome again to another episode of Facts and Fatherhood. I am your humble host, and so glad to be with you again and having another opportunity to share with you in our time together. For I usually say Fatherhood Friday, but see, this month is special. So we have episodes that are going to be airing on more than just Fatherhood Fridays. Why? Because February, which is for Facts and Fatherhood podcast, this is Family Matters Month. That's a true statement, right? Family does matter. Family is so important. As a matter of fact, what makes us fathers is the fact that we have families. So, as promised, I told you that we were going to have some episodes where we're going to have an opportunity to meet my family members. Those of you who don't already know them, you will have an opportunity to meet my family members, my children. And so I'm sitting here today with my youngest child, who happens to be my only daughter. Okay. I don't know if I mentioned this on the other podcast, but I am only designed, created to have one daughter. This is all the daughter I could have ever needed.
That's all he
Okay,
needs. That's all he
just
needs.
one. I mean, just one. It's over. It's not happening again. Okay. Now, before we go any further, I want to make sure that I put this out to y'all. I'm still waiting on some of you all to like, share, and subscribe. I need you to help me grow my channel. Okay, we have some goals that we have set for. And listen, I don't have the answers to everything, but I know that I have some things that can help assist that in every space, whether you're just starting or whether you've been in it for a little while and you have adult inspiration being a father. Like, I love being a father. Oh, did I say that? I didn't say it yet. I love being a father. Did I tell you that? I didn't say that today, but I had to say, okay, I told you I'm going to say that every single time. Those of you who have been following the podcast, come on, fellas, you ready? You ready? Let's do it. Let's do it. Y'all know what we say, right? Come on. Let me hear you say it. I am a good man, and I'm going to make my best bet. That's right. You can be better. You can do better. You can develop. You can grow. You have to grow too. I say a lot of times when I talk about my father, that the reality is that my children and I, we all had to grow. They had to grow up as children. My wife and I had to grow as parents. Okay. And what we see now is the results of us sticking in there and hanging in there until we got it right. Okay. You remember our series that we just came out of? We talked about you need to be present. You don't have to be perfect, but you need to be present. And listen, trust me, if you just keep showing up, you're going to learn what you need to learn. You're going to grow the way you need to grow. You are going to be successful on your journey as a father. All right. So I'll just get the report that we have our website that we are developing. We're going to be like just filling that thing up with some tools and just some things that you'll actually be able to do. Merchandise that's on there. Oh yeah, we're gonna have us some hoodies and some t-shirts. As a matter of fact, the first product that we're gonna have is gonna be dedicated as like my first podcast, my first series of podcasts were dedicated. We started in December, was dedicated to my dad because December was his birthday month. And so the first product that we're going to be having on our e-commerce that is going to be available for you to actually purchase is going to be dedicated to him, and it's going to be a hoodie, t-shirt, cap, those kind of different things like that. And it's going to feature one of my favorite sayings of his that I told y'all from time to time. You're going to hear me say that in his honor, but just as a reminder, okay? Every now and then you're going to hear me say, boy, don't let the devil fool you. Ah, because that was that's one of his hallmark statements, okay? And so that sticks in my head, okay? There's times where there are certain things that happen that just comes back to my. There are so many people who have never met my dad, okay, who I've introduced that to, and every now and then they will say it, boy. So I'm sure he would appreciate that. So in his honor, we're going to be having some products that are going to feature that statement that he made. And of course, yeah, we don't want to leave the ladies out. So he, because he made that statement to both me and my sisters, so sometimes the boy was replaced with girl. Don't let the devil fool you, okay? But anyway, whoever you are, boy, girl, whoever, don't let the devil fool you, okay? So be looking for that. That website is going to launch next month, in the month of March, okay? Exciting things coming in the month of March. And as well as I have been telling you to get yourself ready, to get yourself prepared, because I want you to be able to have a tool or available to you. This little book is going to be available to you very soon, like arrows in my hand. That is going to be launching. That's going to be launching, okay, in the month of June. Perfect time, right? Just in time for Father's Day. All right. So this is going to be a tool again for you to be able to assist you in what you're doing. As a matter of fact, I've already decided that not only we're going to just have this book available, we're actually going to have a journal that's going to kind of go with this, so you can kind of journal along your journey, along your growth journey. And I just want to be here to come alongside you and to support you, right? To just kind of be that coach that's on your team. I'm on your team to really help you be successful in your role and in your job as dad. So listen, I'm hoping that you're going to join us on this journey. Stick with us. There's some great things that we have coming up. As a matter of fact, we're also going to be announcing very soon, when we get those dates locked in, we're going to have a summer men's conference. All right. It's going to be amazing. All right. And especially from the men's conference. You listen, you don't want to miss it. Okay. So just stick with us on this journey. It's very, very exciting. And so I am so glad to be here helping you along your journey of being dads. Okay. You're a good one. You just might not know it yet, but you're a good, okay? And so we're excited to help you get to that point. Well, so my daughter, Miss
Hi
Dustin
guys.
Amanda, say hello, everybody.
How are ya?
Yeah. Yeah. Here time, just like blasting it, like broadcasting it, blasting it on the car, all these things. It was just like,
Yeah.
so this is Miss Dustin Amanda, and she would be what I would call absolutely the ultimate daddy's girl.
I'm
And
honored to
so,
have that title. I am
yeah,
honored to have that title.
yeah, man. So, yeah. So let me just kind of introduce the reality of this. As I told you before, I think in my very first podcast. If you haven't seen that, I'm encouraging you to go back and look at those other episodes. It'll kind of catch you up and help you to kind of get a little enlightenment on the reality of what has inspired me to take this journey with you. Okay. What has inspired me greatly to take this journey with you as dads is remembering when I had my very first, when the first child was born, and I was holding that child up, my son, my oldest son, up at the hospital. Now, listen, it was a surreal moment. It was a moment where um, I became aware of my became aware of that may have existed there. I definitely became aware of where my liabilities were, and the nervousness, the feeling of inadequacy that I felt in that moment. I was so vulnerable, and I remember very clearly it was one of them. It was a very sincere prayer, and I said, Father, I do not know how to do it. I played God Dad. I had godchildren, all that kind of stuff like that. And man, people were telling me all the time, oh, you're such a great dad, your children are so okay. But when he came and I was holding, man, he is really going, this is not like I can play with him and spend time with him and then send him back to his parents, because I am his parent, right? He's going to, I'm going to have, lo and behold, before I could get through the first year, comes the announcement that perhaps there's another one on the way. Hey, yeah. So we're talking about the reality. I'm in my early 20s, and we're talking about really the real owning is that if you apply yourself on it and develop those, the Father will help you along your journey, because that's how He helped me, and that is one of the reasons why I say without apology, okay, without excuse and without a podcast. I can't speak about any other podcast on fatherhood or whatever. The principles that we share on our podcast, this podcast, are scriptural principles. And the reason why we share these scriptural principles without apology is because I know beyond a shadow of a doubt two scriptures that I really want to just kind of center our conversation and resist, try and resist doing my bill. I'm gonna try my best. Okay, feel that, because we watched a lot of the
The Cosby.
Dr. Heathcliff
Yes, we did.
Huxtable
Yeah, I stole his Bill Cosby.
happened. I was looking for my sweater one day, and I was like, I picked out these pants. I was like, oh, these pants right here, these jeans right here, they're gonna look really nice with my sweater. Let me get my Bill Cosby's where I love, building stuff. I said, I'm gonna wear my Bill Cosby sweater, right? I'm searching. I'm like everywhere, right? I'm at the point. I don't remember where is it in the clothes. And I'm looking. Maybe it's gonna turn up. Maybe if it's in very close, okay, I can't wear it well. So, we went to the laundromat, clothes to wash. I'm looking. I'm hell. Not long after this, I happened to be looking on social media posts that my daughter, she was on this video and she was just having a prolific revelation that she was sharing with everybody, right?
And you have your own.
She was having, and while she was sharing this profound, prolific revelation with everybody, I was having one too. And my revelation was this: there's my sweater is not in my vicinity. My sweater is floating around on Instagram.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Guys, it was clear on me.
well,
Okay.
there it is, y'all. That's
Better than her dad's clothes. I'm telling you, it's a cheat code.
mm,
Girls, go take his hoodies, go take his sweaters. If you can fit the pants, go take the pants too, you know? Zhuzh it up and make it your own. No one will ever know. They won't know. You'll get a lot of compliments though. You're welcome.
See, one, see, one, only one. Okay, so I want to center this because these are some of the scriptural passages that one in particular just ooh, okay. But Psalm 103 in verse number 13 says something, and I'll just kind of introduce you in this backstory of me coming from that place of how inadequate I felt and how I was like, okay, I need to depend on you and you've got to show me. Okay. And he has been faithful to show me, to guide me, to direct me. And the way he shared with me and showed me was he says, okay, you have to father that I father you. Now, you know what that meant? That meant I had to take the time to go back and examine, measure, look at the relationship that I have with him and look at the reality of like how he deals with me, how he corrects me, how he instructs me and directs me, and all those kind of different things like that, and begin to apply the principles that I have in the dynamic of the relationship that I have with him. Because here's the reality: every relationship in our life really should be an overflow of the relationship that we have with the Father. So my relationship with my children was supposed to be, or is supposed to be, an overflow of my relationship with him. My relationship with him makes my relationship with them better. Okay. Because I have a perfect model. I'm not perfect, but I have a perfect model who is modeling to me or showing me and guiding me directly as this is look. And here was profound revelations that I received in the area of fatherhood. And that was how he shared with me that the relationship that I develop with my children, it should actually be an introductory relationship. It will be the relationship that becomes the basis or foundation of the relationship that they will later, when they come to the point of accountability and the age of accountability, where they begin to develop that relationship with him. And so when I realized that, it was like, whoa, I really have a profound responsibility. I really have a very important role that I must play. And so I want to understand what this looks like, because I don't want to misrepresent him to them. I don't want to model something for them that does not look like what they're going to later on develop. And if that relationship is what it should be, it actually helps to make the transition of them embracing him as their father a lot easier. But we're gonna get into that. We'll talk about that, what that looks like. You hear me saying it, and at the time, I had never heard anyone say that. As a matter of fact, it's something that I write about at length in the book, where you'll be actually be able to understand this reality of this relationship and the dynamic of what that's supposed to look like. But Psalm 103, verse 13 says, just as a father has compassion on his children. Whoa. Okay. Just that statement right there is so loaded. So he's saying, just like a father has compassion on his children, this is really kind of giving me a characteristic, right, of what I should have as a father. As a father, I really should have embody compassion. Well, there's a reason why I should embody that compassion, right? Because the ultimate father himself, Yahweh himself, is compassionate, right? And I need to model a compassionate father in front of them. But check this out. He says, just as a father has compassion on his children, Yahweh has compassion on those who fear him. Wow. So again, this compassion. And as a father, I demonstrate compassion. That now is something that they are familiar with, as young people, as children coming along. So it helps them to understand the reality of the nature of the compassion that the father has when they develop a relationship with them. Because at the end of the day, the reality is that those of us who are parents, those of us who are fathers, we have responsibility of stewardship, right? The children, they don't belong to us, right? They're on loan to us, right? They only belong to us as a responsibility, right? And then we are to do what? Train them up in the way that they should go, right? We are to instruct them according to the counsel of the scriptures and the word of the Father. And then if we do that, we actually set them up for success in their lives. So he says, so as has compassion on those who fear him, for he understands how we are made. He remembers that we are dust. So he says that his compassion comes from him understanding the way we are made. His compassion comes from us understanding that our condition, our state that we are in. Let me tell you why that was so important to me, right? Because uh, Paul writes in one place, and he says, "When I was a child, I spoke as a child, I thought as a child," and he says, "When I became a man, I put away childish things." One of the things he spoke to me at one time was he says, "You cannot be upset and disappointed with a child for being a child, because it's not until you grow and mature that you put away childish things, but you have to expect the child to be a child, right? And you cannot correct childishness with childishness, right? You can't be a child and correct the child. You have to understand that somebody in this dynamic has to be the mature one. Someone in this dynamic has to be the stable one to be able to assist and help train, teach, right? When we're talking about training and teaching, we're talking about both articulating and demonstrating. Not don't the statement "do as I say and not as I do" is not effective, right? Do as I say as I do, right? Because that's teaching and training. Okay, second verse, then we'll get into it. This one right here is like one of my favorite verses when it comes to like fatherhood. All right. Hmm. I just had a thought. Let me hold it. But this is one of my favorite passages. Ephesians chapter 6, verse number 4 says, "Fathers," and this is specifically spoken to fathers. "Fathers, don't irritate your children and make them resentful." Your King James would say, "Fathers, provoke not your children to wrath." So he says, "Fathers, don't irritate your children and make them resentful. Instead, oh, raise them," right? "Raise them with the Lord's kind of discipline and guidance." Whoa, mind blown, right? That passage right there brings it home. This is proof positive of what I'm supposed to do as a father. That I'm literally supposed to make sure that my engagement with them does not provoke them to go the wrong direction. That I developed a proper relationship with them so that that proper relationship with them will help them to be able to transition, right? He says, do it with his kind of discipline. Well, how does he correct me? How does he discipline me? How does he get me off of the wrong path when I veer off on the wrong path? How does he deal with me? So how he deals with me is how I must deal with them. Because guess what? Later on, when they grow and they develop and have a relationship with him, he's going to deal with them the way he deals with me as his child. So I have to make sure that they are, my job is to make sure that they're familiar with what the process looks like. And I'm an imperfect version of that, right? But I execute it because I have been given an example on how to execute it. So this is the basis of the reality of what that experience looks like. And understand, I'm speaking from the space of being the one who's executing according to the instructions that the Father's telling me what it looks like, right? But I can't speak to you from the perspective of what it looks like to transition into a relationship with the Father, because as we're talking about the reality of being an ultimate daddy's girl, the goal was for the ultimate daddy's girl to become the ultimate daddy's girl. Let's talk about that for a minute. What does,
Ooh.
yeah, ooh,
That's
one of my
actually
friends say I feel my head. Okay.
funny. Yeah. I can honestly say, going back to Psalms 103, as you talked about the compassion, I can honestly say that growing up, I would love to start with the correction portion of
Mhm.
that. Growing up, I remember I always tell people that my dad never dealt with us when his emotions were high. And it wasn't until I got older that I understood. It wasn't until I was older that I
Don't mean
understood
them emotions wasn't high. Okay.
but he was always very consistent in correction. And he is also the example and why I understand that authority is not loud. Authority is actually quite silent, but I mean, it is very effective. So there were many times that we may have done something wrong, and me and my brothers, we operated as a team sometimes, collectively. And then if something went wrong, we were all gonna go at each other. But we knew when daddy hit them steps, okay? My dad was never one to shout. He was gonna say it one time. He speaks in a tone not much louder than like the TV on almost the lowest setting. And then he asked one question, "Do you understand me clearly?" "Yes, sir." And we walk away understanding. We got the whole, picture and ordeal. But there would come times where, of course, as children, with foolishness bound in our hearts, we would try and buck the system a little bit. But his correction was always very calm, very consistent. Um, and we always understood. He always brought us to a point of thinking where we understood why we were getting in trouble. And there were even times where we felt like we deserved more harsh punishment. Sometimes my brothers and I would gather and say, like, man, it would just be so much better if he just whooped us. But the fact that he
Who want a weapon?
spoke to us so kindly, like there are many times that we were like, why he he could have, he could have waylaid you, bro. I mean, but he didn't. And there were times that we would sit and it would almost be like a weight. And one of the things that I love to emphasize about growing up and being able to see such a great example of correction is it allowed us to come to him, or let me say, to have a reverential fear of him without being afraid of him. And
Mhm.
so it caused us to have a true heart of repentance when it came to doing wrong. There were times because we took a 3 hour, let's sit down. He put everything on pause to because he has a daughter who thinks like a writer. So I'm gonna give him every detail, the run along sentences, and he would just sit there and then he would say, "Okay, so an hour ago you said this, and now you're saying this, and the two don't corroborate. So what's this inconsistency?" And
I make this applicable in my understanding as a pastor shepherd, and that is correction must be done correctly, right? And now understand, again, this is a growth process. So
Mhm.
there was stages of development. Like I really realized that the most effective thing I could do was develop myself as a man, develop myself as a husband, as a father, and to continue to make sure that I'm putting myself in a place to grow. Because I mean, let's face it, if I didn't grow, it would be very difficult, for them to be able to grow. And so a lot of things that I modeled, that the Father gave me the grace to model in front of them, and we're just speaking in respect of fathers. We're not think away from moms. Listen, we understand the fact during the month of May, we're going to turn aside just a little bit and kind of recognize although this is fatherhood, podcast, we're going to turn a little side for a moment and recognize mom. But correction must be done correctly. And one of the greatest revelations again that he shared with me from that passage you just mentioned, that he says foolishness is bound in the heart of a child, right? The rod of correction would drive it far from it. The emphasis in that passage, although we focus on the rod, and there are times, right, where we do have to kind of resort, to spanking. We're not talking about abuse, right? That we're not talking about abuse and that sort of thing. But there are times where that calls for it. Now, generally, I was not necessarily going to do that unless I said, if you do such, I'm going to spank you. Now,
It
if I
probably happened like 5 times. I might
it was
might
more.
have happened. Maybe. I don't know.
I feel like it was way more than 5 times.
He didn't whip us more than 5 times. Honestly, going back to the correction thing, I think it was because, and going back to the heart of repentance thing, when you get to see correction exacted in a way where your child is never walking away with, I'll say like this, no matter how you handle a situation in discipline, and I can only speak from a child's place, there are many times that I feel like children leave situations where they're being corrected and they walk away and the parents are like, be quiet, da, 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 all the different things. And it's a more harsh correction. There's the absence of the compassion portion, which means there's a lack of patience. And so there's a lack of gentleness when it comes to that correction. And the children walk away, everything, there is, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you take the time to listen to a child, all those things that the child is thinking in a moment of correction, they tend to bubble up. But most of the time they're silenced. He didn't do that. So out of the abundance of our heart, our mouths were speaking, and that was an opportunity to correct us. It didn't allow for the enemy to have leeway in our thoughts. And so I think a lot of times people miss that the gentle correcting allows for us to speak, the correction to come, and we're not walking away because children are going to reason anyway. So it's it's either our reasoning is met with wisdom and more mature wisdom that a parent can give, or it's met with a child internalized. I was an internalizer severely, and he recognized that in me. And so there were times where he may have to pull me to the side and be like, come here, you come here." But the gentleness in his correction would allow for us to, going back to what I was saying earlier, it allowed for us to have a heart of repentance where once we understood what we did wrong, many times as I mentioned, we would come to it, we'd be like, I wish daddy would have whooped me, because bearing the thought of disappointing him again, I believe that the weight of disappointing him was much greater than the whooping. We wanted the whooping. It was like, quick, get over with it. But to see him hit this, it was like, he did it again. Ugh. And it really did hurt. There were times where I would walk around as a daddy's girl. Okay. No girl who's a daddy girl like they're disappointed. There were times where I would walk around for days
Mm,
in a mood because I would be like, he's disappointed. And my mom would say, he didn't even
mm,
whoop you. He didn't even. And I would just be like, well, mom, I know he's
mm,
disappointed. That weight alone made me tishuva. It made me burn down the house because I was like, I don't want
mm,
to do this again. And so I didn't realize, now in hindsight, I'm able to see that it was preparing me for my walk with the Father, because
mm,
I know what it's like to see my earthly father hit that. And it's like, my heart, I don't want to see that look. Only smiles, okay? But the other thing is, even with me disappointing him and knowing that he was going to have to exact his correction, it never made me run away from him in fear. I bore a certain amount of shame and sorrow because I disappointed him, but because his correction was very compassionate, it also almost like it subconsciously trained me to say, okay, yes, his correction is going to hurt because it's meant to refine us and make us better. So, yes, his correction is going to hurt, but it's also a place of safety I can run to. And so it became a place where dating and give us the discipline, but it also became I know I just got a whooping, but I want daddy. I want, can I come sit in your lap? Because now I gotta tell you how my feelings hurt.
And and the interesting thing about that is that's exactly how the Father wants our relationship with Him to be, right? He does not want us to run away from Him, right? The Scripture says, "Whom He loves, He chastens."
Chasing, yeah.
So correction is definitely a part of the dynamic. Actually, when correction is done correctly, let me say it like this: people just say correction is the purest form of love. No, correction that is done correctly is the purest form of love, because you understand I'm not correcting you to hurt you. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
correcting you to harm you. I'm actually correcting you to save you, to help you, right? This is why the Father gives us instructions, and He wants us not to be afraid of Him, right?
Mm-hmm.
One of the passages that comes to mind says that if we sin, we have an advocate with the Father. If we confess our sins, He's faithful and just to forgive. Whenever there's some things that are there that we know displease Him, right? He wants us to fall, up on His mercy to say, hey, you know what? I know I was wrong. I know I should not have done that. But me knowing how compassionate you are, right? We're not talking about taking advantage of His, goodness and His grace. We're talking about me knowing how compassionate is. That's that pastor just read. Psalm 103 says He knows our condition. He understands that we're dust, right? There's limitations, right? So this is why He provided the avenue. Again, we're not talking about continuing in sin and grace may abound, that kind of stuff. No, right? The Father forbid. But
Mm-hmm.
what we're talking about is the fact that, hey, if there's a situation, if there's an indiscretion or something that comes up, all right, then what we do is we run to Him, right? Because we know, although we're going to receive correction, I tried to make it clear to say, listen, okay, first of all, we're not about to like make this whole discussion about my disappointment. You already know what that is. You
And he
know,
did not. He
you
did not.
know I'm disappointed. I'm not about to just we're not about to just go back and forth about be disappointed. I want to know, what have you learned, right? And if I perceive you hadn't learned very much, right? Again, the rod of correction, right? We talk about the rod of correction. See, if that passage just said the rod would drive it far from it, then okay, obviously we know rod of correction. So this making a distinction here. Correction is the rod in that passage, right? So correction does not look the same all the time. Correction does not require the same thing. And correction, watch, must include instruction, right? You can, because again, I'm a child. I'm thinking like a child. I remember one time, I think I bring this up with all the children, but I remember one time they were having a discussion. They had this whole, I don't know, round table with their friends or something. I don't know what it was, but they had this whole discussion, and they're sitting there because here's the other thing, y'all, and we're gonna get it. I'm gonna get into this a little bit later on another podcast, but but there's a certain type of wisdom, right? There's a grace. I write about it in the book. You got to get that book, okay? There's a grace to parent, and either you lean into the grace to parent, or you fall victim to the frustration of parenting. I'm not gonna get into it. You just get the book, and you'll see what that looks like. You'll see how
Keep
to
that
do that.
tidbit when I have
Okay.
kids.
You gotta remember that. You gotta remember whatever you have been given, whatever the Father's put in your hands to do, that He gives you the grace to do it. So he gave you the child, and that means he's giving you the grace to actually be able to parent the child. You either lean into that grace, tap into that grace, or you fall prey, you fall victim to the frustration, right? And so what starts to happen is when you tap into the grace and you're, sure of yourself and you mature, whenever the child is speaking the foolishness that comes out of their mouth, like sometimes we are in our relationship with the Father, foolishness comes out of our mouth, right?
Yeah.
Job is trying to curse the day that he was born, and the father had to say, "Boy, where were you
Right.
when I cried? What you mean? What do you think I'm dealing with? Where were you when I stretched out all the expense of this? You gonna curse it? Shut up, Joe." No, I'm playing. I ain't saying that. But but when you understand and that you tap into the grace, right? That ability, right? Because grace, that's why grace needs to be taught correctly. Don't make me start preaching. But the reason why grace must be taught correctly because grace in any respect is an empowerment to do. So you have an empowerment to parent the children that you have been blessed to bring into this world. And if you don't tap into that grace, again, you become frustrated. But once you tap into the grace, things start working, right? So when the foolishness is coming out of the child's mouth, right, it helps you to absorb the offense of what it would be, right? Like, bro. I stopped asking why they saying what they're saying. I'm like, oh, they saying what they're saying because they don't know any better. Because so I'm gonna sit here and I'm gonna get it all off the So in their round table, they're smart. Okay, came back on, and they were like, "Well, our friend said," and they were saying, and this was saying, and we all. I said, "Oh," and so I'm listening, right? And while I'm listening to the immaturity, they don't know any better, right? So I'm gonna and I'm gonna let you get it all off your chest. Just come on, just spit it out. So in their round table, their smart round table, they have with all of their children, all their friends, no parents present. Okay, they're sitting there having this conversation, and they came back, and they just came back armed with all of this immature information. And they were like, "Well, our friend said," and they were saying, and this was saying, and we all. I said, "Oh," and so I'm listening, right? And while I'm listening, the immaturity, what's happening in me is the grace that is there upon me to parent. I'm absorbing this, and I said, "Okay." At the same time, I'm listening to the Father. Okay, well, I said, "I have a question." I said, "Now, all of your friends that were in this spot, and any adults present, no." I said, "Well, all your friends that's in that space, aren't you all around about the same age?" "Yeah, okay. I think they're probably somewhere between 11 and 13, somewhere in the age range." And so I was like, "Oh, you guys are all about the same age." "Oh, yeah, yeah." I said, "Wow." I said, "Well, you want to know why all of y'all came away with the same answer?" Well, the reason why all of y'all came away with the same answer is because all y'all is like 11 to 13.
Yeah.
So that's why we in this space. So what I have to do sometimes is sit down and parent, sit down and instruct you instead of just, I don't want to slap the taste out of your mouth. What I need to do is I need to sit down and help you recognize the foolishness that you don't have the maturity to see. Right? I have to help you to see that. I want you to come to the place where you really do think, right? Because that's a part of growing, that's a part of maturing, being able to reason, being able to think, right? I need you to think about what you're saying. Sometimes I would say it again.
Do you know how many times we would go on our 2 hour, 3 hour just spew,
Oh, I was a lecturer.
and he would ask one question and it would end like this? Because we would realize, like, I've been talking all that time and it amounted to this. Going like that. It was going like that. We need that,
I'm telling y'all,
okay?
the wisdom, because listen, I was talking about this in our fellowship this past weekend. There's two types of wisdom. Well, the scripture identifies two types of wisdom: earthly, sensual wisdom. And we're
Mhm.
talking about sensual, we're talking about wisdom that is gained through your sensory experience, right? Your taste, your smell, your touch, your hear, your sight, right? The five senses. So your sensory experience causes you to gain earthly wisdom, right? This is it has its place, right? But the wisdom that James compares that to is the wisdom from above. And the wisdom from above carries certain characteristics. It is pure, it's unadulterated, it's not influenced by anything wicked or evil. It's not something that is according to the counsel of the ungodly or things like that. It's pure, it is peace, reason. I mean, it's so many characteristics. Experience is not the best teacher. Holy Spirit is actually the best teacher because he knows everything about all things, right? So my experience doesn't get me enough. I don't gain enough wisdom through experience unless that experience has been something that I gained through in my connection, my relationship with Holy Spirit, with Father. The thing where we're talking about the reality of being ultimate daddy's girl, which we uh, 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 pray that you develop into daughters,
Amen.
that you develop into where you understand that your relationship and your connection with the Father. And listen, I let me just say this because I feel like I need to say it. It's important for you to know that there's a sense of understanding that some of you have not had that experience of that dynamic. You've not. The transition is a little bit more difficult for you because you did not have your father for some reason or another. And a lot of times, if you look at it and you make the parallels, you will see that some places where you struggle in your relationship with the father himself, even hearing the term, the reference to him as father is a little bit of a struggle for some people. And so we recognize that. Okay. And we're proud, that the Father, what the scripture says, he's a father to the fatherless, right? So there's a way for even you to overcome and get into that dynamic where you actually can embrace the fullest of relationship with the Father. But I'm just curious, as to in your walk with the Father, in your time, in developing, like, you know, um, where you the conversations, the moments where it's like, you recognize and see, your, like, as you see your place with me in your life, where you see your place with him?
Mm. So I can say I thought I knew what it meant to be God's daughter. I would always say that the best relationship that I have with God is not knowing God as my Lord or my ruler. He is
Mhm,
all those things,
mhm,
but I'm more closely identified with God as Father because I knew what it was like to have a great relationship with my earthly dad. But I thought I knew what it was like to be a daddy's girl. And it wasn't until a year ago now, I've been in Dallas for a year and I had to move away from my daddy. When I moved away, I cried that whole first month. The Lord told me in October, I'm sorry, of
I had to
23.
wait to call her.
Yeah, because I was having a time, Lord, and I said, if He called me, I'm coming back home before the week is up. But I moved away, and in October, the Lord told me I was supposed to go to Dallas, and I was like, okay, no plan. He just was like, you need to be in Dallas by January. The Lord, I said, well, Father, if this is what you want me to do, you're gonna have to show me the path. I have no plan, and it's October already. January is
Mhm,
right here. And so I remember going to God and saying, Father, you show me the way. And because I know what it's like to have a relationship of trust with my dad, telling the Lord, Father, I trust you. You'll pave the way. I said, Lord, if my earthly father is trustworthy, surely you know how to do this. So I trusted the Lord. Long story short, I was in January. In January, I was in Dallas, moved in and everything. And I remember one night I was sitting and I had just written a letter, and I wrote a letter to my dad because I was like, I can't call him. So I'm going to have to be his pen pal until I can handle hearing his voice without having the urge to just pack up everything and move back. Because I was like, Lord, I have to be obedient to you. So I remember writing this letter, and the title of the letter was, I've left my father's house. And I cried so much writing that letter. And I remember looking up to the Lord. And this is something that I learned to do with being able to say that God is my father. When life was heavy or things just seemed like they were overwhelming me, what I would do was, or little when I would feel overwhelmed, I would go to bed. And as I would do that, I would just cry. And I was kind of like, I also do that in my dad's lap. So I remember that night, I was in my bed and I rolled up as if I were in my father's arms. And I remember saying, I'm going to talk to the Lord just like this because this is the best way I know how to communicate with the Lord. I said, Lord, I've left my father's house. I said, what have I done? And the Lord said, now you will know what it means to be a daddy's girl. And I was like, what? That ain't give me immediate comfort. But as this year has gone by, there have been many things that it's been a roller coaster. Let's just say it's been woo, and, and so many unexpected things, and having to maneuver life without being able to have daddy right there. But because I've seen such a good earthly representation of what a relationship with God is supposed to look like, there were times I was like, I want daddy. And I would say, but he's right here. And so I would, I made a little corner in my room and I made a prayer wall as a matter of fact. And every time I was growing up, I would schedule a time that I was going to meet with God. And I would say, Lord, I'm coming to you at this time every night. I'm going to come to you at this particular time and I'm going to conversate with you about my day. I'm going to talk to you about everything that I feel like is overwhelming me. And I cannot tell you how many times I'll watch God give me answers. I can't tell you how many times I watch God work things out in my favor from doing that. And I remember saying, Lord, I I have a faithful, you blessed me with a faithful earthly father, but you are so much more faithful, so much more trustworthy. And it just built my confidence in him the more. So although there are many times I'm like, oh gosh, like I would love to just tell him to scoot over in the recliner and just sit my big hips in there with him.
Heavy,
Because I still do, okay? I will
heavy,
never be too big
heavy.
to sit with my daddy in the recliner.
Oh, heavy.
Okay, legs going numb and
I'm
everything, but
getting
I'm
older, bro. I'm
still.
getting older, man.
But there are many times that I miss that, but I've not found any comfort like the comfort of saying, I'm going to grow this relationship intentionally with the Lord. I'm going to spend time in my word. There are even days where I would go to this cute little coffee shop. It's like 18 minutes from my house. I would go to the coffee shop and say, Lord, I have a date with 6 hours at a time just to sit in silence with. I'm just enjoying his presence. I'm not going expecting an extravagant answer. I'm going and saying, Lord, because our relationship is important to me, I am going to spend time with you. And it nourishes me so much. It fills my cup. And so, also, even in the times where I've had to experience God's correction, God's correction has always, there were times that I would say, Lord, I don't understand why you're allowing me to endure this. This is heavy. This is harsh. This is hard. And when God would give me answers that were very direct, like my dad would do, he would give me answers that were very direct, but they were what I needed. I remember one day I was crying, and I was crying for weeks about this specific situation. And I was just telling him, I was like, Lord, my heart is everywhere at this point. I was like, Lord, my heart is heavy concerning this. We also had family members passing away. It was a lot going on. And I wasn't able to come home and be up under my dad. So I was like, Lord, I thank you that you're my father. Once again, I balled up and I got under that cover. And I remember talking to the Lord about the situation. And I remember knowing that the Lord was not going to remove this kind of suffering from me. And I remember the Lord saying, I feel that I am sovereign as well. That was not something that was comfortable for me to hear, but I was able to receive it because although it was stern, I needed to hear that. And I remember saying, well, Lord, if that is what you've called me to do, then I thank you for trusting me to endure this hardship. I thank you for trusting me to carry this grief. I thank you for trusting me to carry this and still go forward in strength, because people were saying like, Dustin, you just always so happy. And I'm like, y'all, I'm relying on the strength of my daddy. Okay, because I don't have it. If y'all see them snot bubbles at home, okay, if y'all see all the tears, and I don't even use tissues, I'm using a towel, you know what I mean, to dry my tears. If y'all saw the if y'all were to see that I only slept 2 hours last night, because 2 hours before it was time that I was barely drifting off, and I was like, oh, I gotta get ready for work. If y'all could only see that. But just seeing how the Father was continuously refilling me and also refining me through the suffering, because God's correction, not only is it a means of refining and causing us to, become better and mature, but it is a means of him loving us. If God did not correct it, those who he loves, he does chasten. And if he did not love me, he wouldn't mind seeing me in my stagnant state. He would not mind seeing me in my lazy or slothful state. He wouldn't mind seeing the worst in me and passing me by. But since he loves me, there's a certain kind of development that, even though it's uncomfortable, and even though he sits and endures my bouts of foolishness, and he's patient and bearing with me in those moments, God is using that to cleanse me as well. And so, being able to see an earthly example of what it looks like for authority to not be exacted in slamming the gavel down and giving me the maximum sentence for such a minute thing, or even if it is a big thing, when your father can notice that you have a remorseful heart and your heart is turned in a space of repentance, and he exacts mercy instead. When you get to see that played out, and then you get in your car your word and you're like, whoa, this is where he learned it. It causes you to say, wow, okay, because an example. There are questions that I feel like I don't have about God because I've been able to see an example set here on earth where I'm like, if a human can do that, then surely my Father in heaven is much better. And knowing that God is the one who has graced him to parent in such a way, man, it's like, Lord, I want that too. I want that too. I'm like, I pray even now, Father, give me the characteristics of a great mother, because once again, it was in his development in himself, and saying, Father, I need to work on me so that I can parent these children. I pray that even now, I don't have a family yet, but I saw this. You know what I mean? I saw the example that you set before me. Help me to jump off his shoulders. And so I've just been really grateful for all of it.
Yeah, I am, and this is what I say because on my side of it, when the children started leaving home, they started going, growing up and that kind of stuff like that. We have that, and that is a challenging dynamic. You're used to it having been, a particular way. You're used to being the provider. You one of the things that happened, as they started to transition, it's like, wow, I have so much more time than I ever realized I had. Because a lot of times you're putting that time and the effort and the energy into their development. You want to see them, be all that they can be. And any good parent, any good father, any good parent, any good mother, you want to see your children be better than you, go further than you, do more than you. You don't want to see them be stagnant. You don't want to see them, digress or be less than you are, especially if you are a kingdom minded individual. You want to see your children be mighty in the earth, as Psalm 112 tells us that they should be. And so, for me, the first thing I want to say is, don't worry about it. Don't be concerned. I know how to take. If you know how to take care of her, I know how to take care of her. So you actually have to trust me. In that dynamic. Now that's gonna help some of you dads that are in that space where your child is growing up and moving into adulthood. Like, you know, I keep referring to the book because it's such a good tool that the Father's given me, because the things we're sharing are things that again have come out of experience. This is not something I got out of some encyclopedia. It's not something that I got, off of some magazine article or anything like this. The things that I'm sharing with you over this podcast and in this book are things that I actually had to walk out, live, learn, develop in trial and error, learn how to execute right. Because sometimes one of the things that if I talk at some point in time is that execution does not always reveal intention. And so sometimes my execution may be a little off, but it doesn't mean that that's what my intention really was. But he began to really share with me that parenting has seasons. I never heard anybody talk about the reality of parenting has seasons, right? And those seasons look different, just like we have different seasons in nature. Parenting has seasons. You're always going to be parent. I'm always going to be dad, right? But the way that dad looks at 6 is not the same way that dad looks at 20, 21, 22. It's still, I'm still father, but there's a season, right? And I used to have conversations with them and tell them, hey, y'all, we're going to be transitioning at some point. As the Father started teaching me, I said, we're going to be transitioning at some point. At some point, we're not going to be telling you when to get up and when to go to bed and when to do this and when to do that. Your decisions that you're starting to make are starting to weigh more on you as you kind of grow and as you kind of mature and develop. And we are going to start to take on a different role. We're going to become more counselors and advisors to you, in so many, different respects. Because the Father was showing me, like, listen, like, you got to really make an adjustment. Like, it would be ignorant of me to go outside in a parka at 120 degrees, right? I'm going to die, or at least have an episode where I will end up in the hospital somewhere, right? Because that is not the season for that particular garment for me to be wearing. So as we move and transition from season to season, and one of the things the father said to me as they were going into their adulthood is he says, one of the best gifts that you can give your adult child is independence. I talk about that a little bit in the book as well, because what you have to understand is a part of teaching and training and developing means that I have to trust what you've learned. And then I have to give you the opportunity to demonstrate what you have learned. I only fully can know if you got the lesson as I see you execute and as I see you move forward. And the greatest thing, there's nothing my children, could do. Even the father started talking to me about biblical terms. I wanted to say, well, what's the best way for me to tell my children, I'm proud of them? Because I know I don't like using that word proud, because it's just, pride. It was the best way. And I remember very distinctly, again, he was teaching me, right? She was baptized, and John comes, baptizes him. The Spirit comes down in the form of a dove. The voice of the Father comes out of heaven and says, "This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased." I got it. I said, "Whoa, Father, you told your son that you were well pleased with him." I said, "Well, then I'm just gonna start telling my children I'm well pleased with you, right?" Because as we said in one podcast before, as a father, children develop a sense of identity from you. Your engagement with them, right? This is why he says in Ephesians 6:4, don't provoke them to wrath. Don't irritate them, right? But teach them, give them the Father's kind of discipline and guidance. There is a right kind of discipline and guidance. There is a wrong kind of discipline and guidance. He says, give them the Father's kind of discipline and guidance. You got to get them familiar with the way he disciplines and the way he guides by the way you discipline and the way you guide. Now, I'm telling you that really does work. Throw away the stuff from the gurus, especially those who don't have children of their own, and listen to me. Right? Just listen to what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
You did that one of our favorite little Cosby episodes. Oh, it's the reality, y'all. Okay,
Yeah.
because the most rewarding thing for me as a father in this particular season of my walk is to be watching, seeing in living color, live and in living color, the children actually walking according to, living according to, embracing the teachings that they were instructed, that my wife and I gave them as they came along. Listen, it is the singular most rewarding thing ever. There's nothing that makes me happier, right? Proverbs is true, that when those children follow your instructions, it does something to your heart. And my wife and I were talking at one point in time. It comes up every now. Well, do you miss them? Well, yeah, of course I miss them, but I would rather miss them the way that I miss them. Right? I'm not missing them because they're locked up. I'm not missing them because they're on the streets doing drugs. I'm not missing them because they're, prostitution, gang banging, drug dealing. I'm not missing them because of that. Right? I'm missing them because they are moving in realms and in places, and having, forward progress and success in life. And they are doing it with a understanding, and they are doing it maybe in different spaces, in a developmental place with their relationship with the Father. That the relationship with the Father is a part of what they are doing, right? And to me, as a father, there could be, I couldn't be happier than to see that, and so I'm making it aware. I'm showcasing these children to you so that you can see that this is really something that works. This is not okay. This is not something that's just been developed, just off a happenstance, or just out of some institutionalized educational system. Okay, this is a reality of what happens whenever you follow the principles that have been set forth. There's a way for you to do it. I'm excited because I'm looking forward to the opportunity where I'm sitting in a room with dads, and I'm actually having an opportunity to be your coach one on one and saying, hey man, come on, let's stick in the game. You can do this. I'm showing you how to develop yourself. We're going according to the principles of the scripture because that's really been designed by the Father for us to live. It works because it's been designed to work. All right. So I'm really wanting to encourage you in that way. And as I've said this on several podcasts. Okay. I believe that my wife and I have been blessed to have been given the opportunity to be the parents to some of the best people on the face of the planet. Okay. These are my favorite people. I don't have any bones about saying that. I used to work and people used to say stuff about, oh, you work for us. And I was like, I don't work for y'all. I work with y'all. I work for them. I want y'all to get it straight. Y'all need y'all to understand. You work for us. No, I work for them. Okay. If it were for them, I wouldn't be putting up with y'all.
Yeah.
But that's the reality, y'all. So anyway, we can go on and on about this
Yeah.
all day, all night. Okay.
Because all my best friends hear about my daddy.
Cause
Oh,
listen,
Lord.
cause listen,
They be like, girl,
cause why?
we know you a daddy's girl.
Cause what you said, per? That you said?
Per.
Oh, okay.
Mm?
That's how you say it.
And he.
Yeah, my coworkers like, who is teaching you all this stuff? So it was my daughter. Sorry. But anyway, listen. This my these little episodes here that we have is just no scripting per se, just kind of an organic conversation. There's so much more that we can share. Like I said, I'm looking forward to the day where I'm sitting in a room with dads that are working to develop, to grow into who the Father has ordained for you to be as a father in the home. We're gonna reverse this stuff. All right,
We need you, Dad. We need
25 million children, 25 million children in just the United States are living anywhere from 20 to 25 million children in the United States. That's alarming, right? But we are going to make sure that we do all we can to make the most impact, do our little part that we can do to help and assist you in your journey of fatherhood. If you're just now entering into it, my youngest boy is just now entering into it. I am beyond excited.
I'm gonna be an
In a few
auntie.
days, y'all be looking for that because guess what? There's gonna be. I'm gonna have a lot of little. So I'm gonna have so much content surrounding that boy's coming. Like we're gonna be chronicling our trip on the road, all those kind of different things like that while we're on the way. We're gonna have a whole little thing just really kind of just dedicated to his arrival. I'm excited about that. I want you to join me on this journey. Like I said, we're gonna have a lot going on this particular month. This is Family Month for a specific reason because there's a special edition that's being added to our family in the next few short days. Auntie over here,
Y'all not ready.
and Papa. Yeah, I don't need a fancy name. Call me Papa,
Yeah.
grandfather, whatever, all those things. But listen, thank you again for joining. Don't forget, I need you to do what this screen is telling you down here. I need you to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. All
Hit
right.
that button,
I
y'all.
need you to do it. Hit that notification button so you'll know when we're posting new content. Follow us on all of our social media pages and all those things. Get on that website. Get you that hoodie or that t-shirt or coffee mug or whatever, and just take it to work, right? Take it to work. Put it on the put your coffee cup on the table. Put your coffee cup on your desk, right? And just spread that message. Just trying you at work. Just pull that coffee cup up and don't let the devil fool you. No. Okay, but anyway, know this: we're in your corner. Want
Yes,
to see
we
you
are.
be successful. Want to see you do it. Want to just be right there by your side, just to be someone to come alongside you to just push you to your best. All right. Remember, let's say it again. Come on, man. You ready? You ready to stay with me? Come on. I am a good man. I'm doing the best I can. And I'm going to make sure make my best. Thanks again. I appreciate you so much for joining with us and for being with us here on the I almost forgot what I was trying to say. But on the facts and on the facts and really excited, really excited and grateful to have you joining us and being a part here on the podcast. And so, listen, I have been getting a lot of good feedback. All right, I'm excited about where we're going. I'm excited that we finally got this thing started. We've been going now since December, and I'm getting more and more and more excited as we move forward. Things are going to continue to develop and get better with us with our channel. And like I said, we're having some traction and we're having some movement. Thank you so much. Thank you in advance for those of you who are going to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for those who are going to share this with new dads, old dads, grandpas, stepdads, all those kind of different things like that. Look for what we have coming. Don't forget, you're going to be able to get that book in your hand. You're going to actually be able to go into the website. Don't forget that, okay? Going to be able to come and attend our men's conference, and we're going to air a special episode of Facts and Fatherhood with our panel of guests. Look as we start to move forward. We got some other things coming up, like I said, and we're going to be doing between the month of March and April. We're going to be doing a series called the Show Up Dad, and we're going to be interviewing different dads that are in different stages, different places, different challenges. Some with special needs children, some with blended families, all those kind of things like that. We're going to be talking about the Show Up Dad. We're going to be talking about for showing them these and doing the great things with mothers. Mothers, we're gonna, have some time in the month of May to recognize and appreciate you for your contributions. Although again, this is the Fatherhood Channel, we're going to just take a little time and appreciate the moms. And appreciate the moms. And appreciate the moms. And then the month of June is going to be the month where we have our book launch. All right. That is the month that we're going to have our book launch. It's going to be really big. I'm really going to try to do this. I really want you to get that tool in your hand. I really do. I want you to get that book and I want you to get that journal in your hand. And I want us to be able to just kind of come along with one another. One of these days, I think I'm going to start doing some fatherhood empowerment sessions. And we're going to be able to come in and we're going to come together and we're going to do this, man. We're going to hold one another accountable. Listen, we're going to be those good men, those the best we can, and doing everything we can to make our best better. All right. Thank you so much for joining me. And my daughter here, Dustin Amanda, the ultimate daddy's girl.
Is.
All right. Is. She's the ultimate daddy's
Yes,
girl,
I am.
but she's also the ultimate daddy's girl. All right.
Amen.
Listen, we appreciate y'all. Thank you for joining us
Thank
here on
you.
Facts and Fatherhood. We will see you the next time.